Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Okay, welcome back to you all. Before we begin today's talk, let's go around as is our tradition and say our names. Take a little breath in between. Let's not try to rush too quickly. My name is Roy.
Susie.
My name is Daniel.
My name is Brad.
David.
My name is Gary.
I'm John.
I'm Wally.
My name is Harley.
My name is Ricardo.
Jose.
My name is Cass.
Eduardo here.
I'm Kay.
Ian.
Hila.
My name is Douglas. I'm Bob.
Jack.
My name is Michael.
Lee. My name is Oswaldo.
I'm Tom.
My name is Tage.
I'm Dennis.
Kevin. My name is Kevin.
Ralph.
I'm Nathan.
John Stewart.
Peter.
Jerry.
They are.
Is that everyone? Before I introduce our returning speaker, Tova Green, today, I have some sad news to report. Our Sangha member, Roger Pinnell, who has been probably a member for almost 2 years and battling cancer the whole time that he was here with us, passed away this last Thursday. I understand. I spoke to him about a month ago. We had a really wonderful conversation on the phone, and he was on his way back to San Diego with his brother. His treatment was stopped here in San Francisco, but he was from the San Diego area, and there was a group of doctors who wanted to take his case on. So luckily, he was able to move back home to San Diego, and he had where his family was, his mom, his brother, his sister, and a really wonderful group of friends, very tight-knit community that he had around him. So he had wonderful friends here in the city too, but I think his place was in San Diego. So he did pass away Thursday, sadly, and if you'll just keep him in your thoughts and your prayers, we greatly appreciate it. So, Tova Green. Tova began sitting at the San Francisco Zen Center in 1990 after many years of Vipassana practice. She became a resident there in 1999 and was ordained as a priest in 2003 by Eijun Linda Cutts. Tova co-founded the Queer Dharma Group at the center and is currently the director of the San Francisco Zen Center's City Center. Welcome, Tova.
Thank you very much, Roy. And to all of you who knew a member who died, my condolences, and I'm sorry for your loss. And I wonder if it might be helpful to take just a moment of silence before I start speaking. Good morning, and thinking about when we lose a loved one, there's, in addition to the grief, sometimes a lot of gratitude for the ways in which that person has touched our lives. And what I'm going to speak about this morning, because it's Earth Day, is caring for the earth, which really needs our attention, And it's about both celebrating the earth and mourning some of the things that, some of the ways in which the earth is suffering. So I find celebration and mourning often go hand in hand. So, we have a really incredibly beautiful spring day today, following another one yesterday, and it may cause some of us to want to be outside, to go to the park or the ocean, to enjoy nature either in the city or outside, or perhaps some of you have gardens you work in, and you're looking forward to spending some time in your garden today and nurturing the growing things there. So I think it's a wonderful day for us to be aware of Earth Day. And just a few words about Earth Day. Earth Day was first declared and celebrated in 1970, so we've been thinking about Earth Day and the Earth in this way for several decades now. And it was founded by the environmental movement, or people in the environmental movement, as a way of increasing our awareness of the beauty and the fragility of the earth. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Okay, great. And it seems as relevant, if not more relevant now, as it was in 1970, as we see more and more evidence of climate change, of global warming, of the depletion of some of our very precious natural resources, the water we use, the air we breathe, and the earth in which we grow our food. And then we also hear of other species threatened by clear cutting or destruction of marshlands, or pollution by oil spills. So, the news of what's happening to the earth is very accessible to us, and sometimes it can be very hard to hear and even overwhelming, and we don't really want to hear about it. But Earth Day gives us an opportunity to rekindle our appreciation for the earth and our awareness of how connected we are to the earth. And perhaps this can lead to renewed commitment to take care of the earth in any way we are able to do so. And, Buddhist teachings from the time of the Buddha have, and later on writings of some of Buddhist teachers in our Zen tradition. So I'm a Zen Buddhist currently, and we study the teachings of a Zen priest and teacher and poet who lived 800 years ago, Eijun Dogen. Some of you might be familiar with some of his work, but a lot of it is inspired by nature and has a view of nature that I want to talk about today, where we're not separate from nature. And that has been developed further in our time by a number of Buddhist writers and scholars, including Joanna Macy, whose work I want to talk about today. So one of the earliest teachings that I think emphasizes our connection to the earth is the loving kindness meditation, which some of you might be familiar with. At Zen Center we chant it at least once a week, actually twice a week, because once a week we do a well-being ceremony for people who are ill, and this is what we chant at the well-being ceremony. And yesterday we did an Earth Day service outside in the courtyard. If any of you have been to City Center, you notice it's a Julia Morgan building, very beautiful, and like many of her buildings, it has a courtyard. So we did a service for Earth Day yesterday morning in the courtyard, and right now lots of things are in bloom, and there's a Japanese maple that has bright green leaves, and it was really beautiful to be outside thinking about the earth and chanting this. I'm just going to read part of it because I think this very much pertains to our connection with the earth. May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. All living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low realms of existence, small or great, visible or invisible, near or far, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let no one deceive another, nor despise any being in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. Even as a mother, at the risk of her life, watches over and protects her only child, so with a boundless mind should one cherish all living things, suffusing love over the entire world, above, below, and all around without limit. So let one cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world. So I think that message of cultivating an infinite goodwill toward the whole world is one we can remember on Earth Day, but maybe every day, because the whole world, and this is something Dogen says, the whole world is not separate from us. And sometimes we think of sentient beings as people and animals, and we might extend that to plants, but Dogen talks about, he has a beautiful essay called The Mountains and Waters Sutra, in which he talks about the mountains and waters as also sentient beings, as alive and changing. Sometimes we can't see the changes, especially in mountains. They may come more slowly, but they do change. And he talks about mountains walking, which is maybe an unusual concept, but for people who spend a lot of time in the mountains, you may notice the changes over time and trails you've walked on. Or, I know at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, where I lived for a number of years, I could see shifts on some of the trails. There's a wonderful trail there that makes a loop, the horse pasture trail, it's called. And not only does it change from season to season, but sometimes some of the rocks actually shift, and you can see places where the rocks in a very different geologic time have been set kind of sideways. I'm not a geologist, but I think anyone who loves rocks or changes in nature would enjoy that trail, because there's so many different terrains along that trail. And then there was a huge fire in the Ventana wilderness that swept through Tassajara a few summers ago. And after that, there were lots of changes on that trail, including some rocks that moved. And since then, because of trees that were burned and erosion, there have been more changes. So, I think that idea of mountains walking is not so far-fetched. Because mountains, they do change. So anyway, expanding our ideas about sentient beings and how interconnected we are with all beings, including mountains and waters, can really help us in thinking about how we might want to care for the environment, because it's not separate from us. We need mountains and waters, and they need us. That's one of the messages that Dogen talks about. So recently, I was very fortunate. I was able to spend 2 weeks at Tassajara. During the winter, 6 months, Tassajara, I'll just ask, has anyone here been there? Well, quite a few of you. So you'll resonate with what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I hope you get to experience it sometime. During the 6 months from late September through early April, Tassajara is closed for visitors, and there are 2 3-month, what we call practice periods there. And my teacher, Eijun Linda Cutts, was leading the winter practice period this year, so I went for the last 2 weeks, which were the last 2 weeks of March. And while I was there, she was teaching the Mountains and Waters Sutra of Dogen, so I kind of immersed myself in it, and it was a real treat to be able to do that in the midst of the wilderness, with the mountains and Tassajara Creek, which runs through the valley. And while I was there, it snowed on the ridge, and it also rained several times. I could hear the creek from the zendo and also the rain pattering down on the zendo roof. So I was extremely aware of mountains and waters. And also at night, the sky is so clear, except when it was cloudy. But when it was clear, the stars just burst out. They're partly because there's no other light in the valley at night. It's very different from seeing the stars in the city, or even, sometimes in Marin you can see the stars a little more brightly than you can in the city. But Tassajara, they're just bursting forth. And it made me think of two poems that I wanted to share with you that are about the stars. One is by a New York City poet, Marie Howe, and it's called The World. And the other one you might be familiar with, it's Walt Whitman, When I Heard the Learned Astronomer, which I learned that poem when I was in college, and I think it's really had an influence on my life. This one, Marie Howe's poem, is a newer one for me. Last time I spoke here, I read a poem by Marie Howe. She's become one of my favorite poets. So this one is called The World, and I'll read it twice because often it takes a while to absorb a poem, especially if it's one you haven't heard before. The World. I couldn't tell one song from another, which bird said what, or to whom, or for what reason. The oak trees seemed to be writing something, using very few words. I couldn't decide which door to open. They looked the same, or what would happen when I did reach out and turn a knob. I thought I was safe standing there, but my death remembered its state. Only so many summer nights still stood before me. Full moon, waning moon, October mornings. What to make of them? Which door? I couldn't tell which stars were which, or how far away any one of them was, or which were still burning or not, their light moving through space like a long, late train. And I've lived on this earth so long, 50 winters, 50 springs and summers, and all this time, stars in the sky, in daylight when I couldn't see them, and at night when most nights I didn't look. So I think there's a lot in this poem, but in terms of the stars, often when we can see the stars, we don't notice the stars. So it's in a way a reminder to wake up and look at the sky and listen to the birds and appreciate the nature that's around us, even in the city. Actually, at City Center in the morning now, I can hear the birds from the zendo. It's really, more birds are migrating back to the city. And it's really wonderful to hear the birds amidst the traffic and occasionally the sirens, but hearing the bird songs. And unlike Marie Howe, I can't tell one bird song from another, but I still enjoy them. So I'll just read it again. The World. I couldn't tell one song from another, which bird said what, or to whom, or for what reason. The oak trees seemed to be writing something using very few words. I couldn't decide which door to open. They looked the same, or what would happen when I did reach out and turn a knob. I thought I was safe standing there, but my death remembered its date. Only so many summer nights still stood before me. Full moon, waning moon, October mornings, what to make of them, which door. I couldn't tell which stars were which, or how far away any one of them was, or which were still burning or not, their light moving through space like a long, late train. And I've lived on this earth so long, 50 winters, 50 springs and summers. And all this time, stars in the sky, in daylight when I couldn't see them, and at night when, most nights, I didn't look. So, she's aware, having lived 50 years, that her life is finite, and I think that thought, whenever we have it, really helps us appreciate the time that we have, and I think losing a friend also can be a reminder of how precious our own lives are, and not to waste time is the saying we have on an instrument at Zen Center, the Han, don't waste your life. So I think that appreciation of the bird songs and the stars in the sky can help enhance our lives, the very simple pleasures that are there, right there for us every day. So I'll read When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I, sitting, heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical, moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. So again, a reminder to remember the stars. And I think it sounds maybe like he's putting down science or astronomy, and I don't know that that's true. I think we can appreciate knowing the names of stars or really understanding something about astronomy and still have a different experience of it when we're actually outside looking at the stars. So this is all about noticing what's around us and not taking it for granted. And maybe it's easier to do that in the atmosphere of a monastery with very few distractions and a lot of silence, but we all live in the city, and we can find our ways of appreciating and feeling connected with the place where we are. So I want to move on to talking a little bit about Dogen's Mountains and Waters Sutra and a teaching that he has in the Mountains and Waters Sutra. And forgive me for reading a few things today, but I think I want you to hear these in the words of the poets and also Dogen's words. So it's just a very short paragraph. Although we say that mountains belong to the country, actually they belong to those who love them. So think about that. That's what I want to talk about, but I'll read the rest of the paragraph. Although we say that mountains belong to the country, actually they belong to those who love them. When the mountains love their owners, the wise and virtuous inevitably enter the mountains. And when sages and wise men live in the mountains, because the mountains belong to them, trees and rocks flourish and abound, and the birds and beasts take on a supernatural excellence. This is because the sages and wise men have covered them with their virtue. We should realize that the mountains actually take delight in wise men, actually take delight in sages. So this may seem a little strange, the mountains. And do mountains have feelings? Can they take delight? Do they respond to people, whether they're wise men and sages, or those of us who hike in the mountains and enjoy the mountains? And I think Dogen would say, yes, it's a reciprocal kind of relationship. And I think the meaning of mountains belong to those who love them. It's not literal. Like if we hike on Mount Tam, we don't necessarily own Mount Tam. It doesn't belong to us in that sense, but it belongs to us in the sense that we care about it as we get to know it, or any place that we take care of, whether it's your backyard or the AIDS Memorial Grove, or some place where you walk or hike where you may just find yourself picking up trash because you don't want to see it there, and you kind of develop a sense of connection with a place in nature, and then you want to take care of it because you love it. So I think that's the meaning of that sentence. Although we say that mountains belong to the country, actually they belong to those who love them, because in a way, when you love something, whether it's a place in nature or a dog or a cat that lives with you, or a friend or your partner, there is that sense of wanting to take care of them. There's that real connection and a feeling that you're aware that when they're in pain, you feel it. When they're happy, you feel it. When they're suffering, you're not separate from that suffering. And I think that is the message that Dogen is trying to convey, and that actually the idea, or the phrase interbeing, which is one that Thich Nhat Hanh often uses, conveys that as well, that we're connected with everything, whether it's each other, the animal world, the plant world, or the world of mountains and waters. And in terms of some contemporary thinking about that, there's a way of thinking of ourselves as having, in addition to a self that we may be more familiar with, our own concerns, that can then broaden to include other people, other beings. And there's a phrase developed by an ecologist some years ago, his name is Arne Nass, called the ecological self, where we actually expand our sense of self to include the whole world. And this is a concept Joanna Macy developed in her work. Is anyone here familiar with Joanna Macy's work?
She's spoken here.
She's spoken here? Oh, great. So I didn't know that. But she was one of my mentors and teachers. I started going to her workshops in 1982 when I lived on the East Coast. And that first workshop really rekindled my activism. Earlier in my life, I had been involved in the civil rights movement and protested the Vietnam War, and then gay rights in the 70s and early 80s, and I put that on hold for a while. But when I went to Joanna's workshop, I really was inspired to again become involved in anti-nuclear activism, and I think it's just her work has really inspired many people. So I wanted to say a little bit about it. She has a new book out. It's called Active Hope, and in it, it's the subtitle is How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. Because I think sometimes it does seem like we're in a mess, and it can seem really overwhelming. So how do we address it? And she has a series of steps, and with each one she has some questions that help us think about these steps. And I want to briefly talk about them. The first one is coming from gratitude, so we were talking a little bit about grief and gratitude, and some questions that she says help cultivate that gratitude are: some things I love about being alive on the earth are, and then you fill that in. Or a place that was magical to me as a child was. Or someone who helped me believe in myself was. So some of those questions help cultivate gratitude. And in terms of caring about the earth, it reminded me of the beginning of Al Gore's film, An Inconvenient Truth. Probably some of you saw that film, and he talks about, or it actually shows him walking by a river that he walked by when he was a boy with his father, and that river is a place that he deeply loves, and that seeing the changes in the river in part has helped him take such a strong stand about global warming and devote a lot of his time and effort to it. So I think there's something about that question, a place that was magical to me as a child, or some things I love about being alive on earth. And then honoring our pain for the world is the next step. But she says if we, are in touch with what we love about the earth, then questions like, when I think about the conditions of our world, I would say things are getting, and you fill that in. So many of us would say things are getting worse or more difficult. Some concerns I have include, and then trying to be specific about what things you're concerned about. And then some feelings that come up when I think about these things are. And so that could be anger, could be grief, it could be sadness, but making space to honor that pain for the world. And often when we do that, especially with other people, we can then begin to see things with fresh eyes and develop that wider sense of self. And along with that, sometimes, especially if we can share that with other people, a richer sense of community. And Joanna says we're part of widening circles from our individual perspective out to the web of life. And then when we can see ourselves in that way and interconnected with all beings and with others who care, we can go forth. So a section of her book is called Going Forth, and daring to believe that it's possible to make a change, to make a difference with support, and also there are ways of doing that and maintaining our energy and enthusiasm. Joanna's now in her 80s, and she's been doing this work for maybe 40 or 50 years, and if you meet her, those of you who've met her, you know how she seems tireless. She's just got this boundless energy, and I think it's partly from her practice. She sits, and she also has a family that she loves who give her a lot of joy, and she really does enjoy being in nature. And so I think for all of us, if we want to maintain our energy to do things on behalf of the earth, we have to find what gives us joy. So I think that's, and also what allows us to kindle our sense of wonder and appreciation for the earth around us, so that we do look at the stars at night and we do appreciate the beauty that is everywhere, when we take time to see it. So I would like to end with one last poem by Mark Doty. He's also a New York poet. He's coming to the Bay Area, and he's going to give a reading at Zen Center this summer. This one is called A Green Crab's Shell. So, not exactly green, closer to bronze, preserved in kind brine, something retrieved from a Greco-Roman wreck, patinated and oddly muscular. We cannot know what his fantastic legs were like, though evidence suggests 8 complexly folded, scuttling works of armament, crowned by the four-claws gesture of menace and power. A gull has gobbled the center, leaving this chamber, size of a demitasse, open, to reveal a shocking Giotto blue. Though it smells of seaweed and ruin, this little traveling case comes with such lavish lining. Imagine breathing surrounded by this brilliant rinse of summer's firmament. What color is the underside of skin? Not so bad to die if we could be opened into this, if the smallest chambers of ourselves similarly revealed some sky. So it brings us back to this wonder and the sky. I'll read it once more. A green crab's shell. Not exactly green, closer to bronze, preserved in kind brine, something retrieved from a Greco-Roman wreck, patinated and oddly muscular. We cannot know what his fantastic legs were like, though evidence suggests 8 completely folded, scuttling works of armament, crowned by the 4 claws gesture of menace and power. A gull has gobbled the center, leaving this chamber, size of a demitasse, open to reveal a shocking Giotto blue. Though it smells of seaweed and ruin, this little traveling case comes with such lavish lining. Imagine breathing surrounded by this brilliant rinse of summer's firmament. What color is the underside of skin? Not so bad to die if we could be opened into this, if the smallest chambers of ourselves similarly revealed some sky. I think often when you pick up a shell, the underside is this just beautiful color, lavender or iridescent, or in this case, blue. So I think that's where I'd like to end, and I think we have maybe 6 or 7 minutes for questions or comments. If anybody has something you'd like to contribute, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I love your use of poems. I read once that if the stars only came out once every 1,000 years, all of history would pivot on those nights, because people would be so blown away by the splendor of the universe that they would change their ways. And now we don't look. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, luckily they come out more often than
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So we can enjoy them. And yes, we do tend to just not stop noticing things that are there. But it's a great gift if we do notice them. Yes.
Tova, something that always bothers me, and it seems like in discussion of nature and the destruction of the earth, that this very strong taboo about talking about population growth.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that attracts me to Buddhism is that it gives weight to other living things. The population of the earth has tripled in my lifetime, and older people here, and it's at least doubled, I think, in everyone who's here. And
yes.
The population of the U.S. has doubled in my lifetime. And yet, this is this juggernaut that's causing everything, and yet it's this taboo. We could talk about it in 1970, but it seems like we can't talk about it now. And do you have any suggestions? I mean, you can say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Or you can say, just that, I don't know what. Is there something in Buddhism that because these other sentient beings have a right, that there's some, for us as sentient beings, do we have some responsibility to at least acknowledge that we're going to add another billion in less than 12 years? Unless we have a catastrophic contagion or nuclear war?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And yes, we do have a responsibility to bring that up. And I wanted to mention, I'm really glad you brought that point up, because overpopulation is a very serious problem, and along with that, all the resources that it takes to maintain the ever-growing population. The current issue of inquiring mind, if any of you see this or get this, I don't know how widely distributed it. We usually have a bunch of free copies at Zen Center, but this one has just come out. It's called Earth Now, and there's a wonderful article in here by Gary Snyder, which Not a Throwaway World, it's called. And he talks about the imperative to do something about population. So it's definitely part of the discourse. I think we have to look at all of the things that are contributing to the degradation of the environment, and overpopulation is definitely one of them. What to do about it is a big question, I think, and I think there are many parts of the world, or some parts of the world, in which people are becoming more aware of the need to limit family size, and but it's definitely something we need to talk about and be aware of. But in any case, I would strongly recommend this. This was guest edited by Susan Moon, and it has there's an interview with Joanna Macy in it, and just many wonderful writings.
I subscribe to that, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm pleased that at least it was brought up in that issue.
It's definitely brought up in this issue, yeah. Yes. And he also talks about simplifying, Gary Snyder in his article, how we might simplify our lives, and how we also need to address the increasing demand on energy sources that are not renewable. I have, because I lived in Australia for 3 years, I have friends in Australia who are environmental activists. I don't know that that's a big cause, but I do have some friends in Australia who are very concerned now about coal gas mining, which is devastating large parts of Australia. And yesterday I heard about Native Americans in Michigan, northern Michigan, and who are concerned about their land being desecrated by mining for, I'm not sure what it is. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact conversation, but there are so many ways in which our need for more and more energy and is a real problem for the earth as well. So, whenever we have a chance to use public transportation or ride a bike or a carpool, or have one car instead of two cars, we're doing something really beneficial for the earth. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that in preparing for my talk today, I found a website. I just want to mention it. Where is it? It's the Earth Day Network, which has a web page, and it has something on it called 1 Billion Acts of Green. So many, many suggestions of small things we can do that could make a difference. Yeah.
Just spontaneously before you spoke, what was coming to my mind was I was looking at the floor, and I was thinking about every single one of these stripes is a year of growth, right? Every single stripe on every beam is a year of sunshine and water and a tree somewhere that was living, and all the trees that gave their lives to make the floor. And I feel like people just walk on it. They don't realize that this is like hundreds of years of lives. And I don't even know how many lives are here. And it's pretty overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think now we're more aware of when we do put down floors, thinking about bamboo or some other things that are cultivated specifically for our floors, or trees that are planted to be lumbered rather than old growth trees, cutting down old growth trees, which are becoming very rare. So thank you for reminding us, so we can walk on these floors with appreciation. At least we take our shoes off. It's like a step in the right direction. So I think there's time for maybe one more question or comment. Yes.
Another taboo subject is one that's beginning to provoke me. And it's because I am a Christian. Sometimes, sadly. A lot of Christians these days, I think, are motivated in their disregard for the planet by a belief that we're getting out of here anyway. And the faster we get out of here, the better. So why worry about global warming? That maybe we should promote it, or they wouldn't say that, but they would say maybe we should let God do what God is doing about that so that it ends quicker. So you mentioned that you have been involved in activism, and I'm not built to think of being an activist myself, but one of my teachers, Pema Chodron, keeps putting into my mind the thought that part of what it is to practice peace is to communicate truthfully with people with whom we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big one for me because I'm considering taking on some of my fellow Christians about it. But from your experience of being an activist, what can you add to my understanding of how to do that non-aggressively?
Well, I think I appreciate what Pema Chodron says, and I think to speak honestly about what you deeply care about is very important, and it can be very difficult. And I think it's helpful to remember that there's another passage in the Mountains and Waters Sutra that is really wonderful. It's about how our perception of water is, we see water from a human point of view. We drink water, we swim in water, we bathe in water, and water is hydrogen and oxygen combined. Fish see water in an entirely different way. He uses images like a fish may see water as a palace or as a jewel. It's a whole different way. And if we can remember that we see things in our way and other people see things in a different way because of their conditioning, we don't really know why. But to approach the people with whom you disagree, or they have a different view, with a sense of respect for where they're coming from, and not trying to think of them as the enemy, or you're right and they're wrong, so that you're trying to communicate and connect, have a conversation, not an argument. That can be helpful. I think that's where our Buddhist practice can be very helpful in realizing we're connected with the people who see things differently from us as well. And how can we make that connection kind of alive when we're talking with them? It's not easy, but it's important to have those conversations. And you don't have to call yourself an activist, but I think anytime we speak out about something we care about, or pick up some litter on the street, that's taking some positive action. You may find there are other Christians who think the way you do. You're probably not the only one, and I hope you do find a way to give voice to what you really believe.
Thank you for your advice.
You're welcome. So thanks for your attention, everyone, and for being here this morning.
Thank you. Okay, so we have time for announcements.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. I'm Cass. I'm your host today. Please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. We have refreshments and hot water for tea. If you make some tea, please wash your cup in hot soapy water afterwards. I'll be coming around with the Honorable to help meet the expenses of our Sangha. Suggested donations $5 to $8. And some people gather around 12:30 at the front door to go for lunch. It's open to, it's completely open invitation to anybody in the Sangha to join. And one more thing, we do have a couple of openings for hosts. So if you have been thinking about ways of contributing to the Sangha, it's a commitment of once every 2 months. And just come and speak to me and I can let you know what is involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Cass. Tova.
So I'd like to invite all of you, if you want to come to our Queer Dharma Group, which meets once a month. It's usually the last Saturday of the month, and we're having it next Saturday, 300 Page Street from 1 to 3. And I'll be the speaker again. I'll be the speaker there. But we have a group of about 5 people who rotate speaking. One of them is coming here in a couple of weeks, Dagon Gaither, so you'll get to meet him. And also we'll be marching in the Pride Parade again. I think this is our 4th year. And if you're interested in joining us, please get in touch with me. I'll be coordinating with some other people at Zen Center. And last year, Hartford Street Zen Center marched with us. I think East Bay Meditation Center, their Alphabet Sangha, is going to march with us this year. It's a lot of fun. We have a floating zendo. And the third thing I wanted to mention is this is Zen Center's 50th anniversary of our incorporation, and we're doing a number of events, but one I'd like to tell you about on Monday, June 4th, will be a concert for peace. It's called Resounding Compassion at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. I brought a flyer. This isn't our final flyer, but anyway, we will have some postcards, and I'll see if I can get some postcards over here before. It's going to be on Monday night, June 4th. I think it's going to be a really wonderful event, so I hope some of you can come.
Thank you. Jim.
Phil Prince and I sing in the San Francisco Choral Society, and next weekend on Saturday night and Sunday afternoon, we're performing Handel's oratorio, Israel and Egypt, which is about the liberation of the Hebrew tribe from Egypt and across the Red Sea. And it's, if you've ever enjoyed any of the musical power in Messiah, this piece is full of that genius. And it's also full of a lot of singing. And it's quite cinematographic in its choral depictions of plagues and such. So, and that's next week.
Tom?
If you can recommend a good chiropractor, I'd love to hear from you during the prayer. If I may say a few words about Roger Pinell, he was one of the Sunday hosts, and I was the host coordinator when he first volunteered, and he was not only a great chef, but he was a wonderful Sunday host. And I remember the first time that the Roger hosted, after the usual weekly announcement of the host, he said, when it comes to meditating, I know you have many choices, and we thank you for choosing the Gay Buddhist Fellowship.
And that's the reaction you got. Is there anyone else? Well, we're going to stand for a dedication of merit, and I just ask that you keep Roger and any other loved ones that you have in mind. Please keep them in your minds as we go ahead and do this.
By the power and truth of this practice, may Roger and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May Roger and all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May Roger and all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may Roger and all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.